Hey YouTube family, Tyler O'Connor here with Simplistic Fishing. Today we're jumping into Richland Chambers. We got to finish that one up. I already did the Google waypoints on it. If you missed those videos, click the link up above. It'll take you to those. You can watch those and then come back to this one, or you can watch this one right now. This is the navionics version. I'm going to try to cover it all. It's going to be a little bit lengthy, so you may want to save it, download it, come back to it, whatever you want to do. But without further ado, let's jump on to this thing. Okay, so let's dive into Richland Chambers and let's talk about just the navionics side of it. So areas that we would fish or we would consider to be offshore for Richland Chambers. And if you know me and you fish with me at all, you'll know that I don't usually like fishing any deeper than 30, 35 feet. So there could be areas in this lake that are deeper than that probably have bass there. I just never been attracted to that deep of fishing. But with live scope now in play and everything else, that could totally change. So let's start out down here by the dam. There's not a lot of riprap on this dam. I believe it's just the concrete. So not a lot going on here. Definitely would fish it, depending on the time of year. But as far as contour lines and things like that, just not a lot setting up there. And I do like this little point right here, though. If you look at it, it comes off the dam and has really good sharp breaks. In fact, it goes from basically 1 to 2 foot, all the way down to 50 feet at the deepest. So there's a really good break right here. So I would definitely focus on this area right around this point and take a look at that and see if you can find some good fish there. So then moving over here, there is this little point that comes off, and I believe you can go back here, and it's pretty shallow. There is a road bed in there, so take a look at that road bed. And then, maybe even scan over here and see what these three things are. They could be brush piles. It could be an underwater pipe. You never know what it is. And then there was also some water output that was somewhere right around here that you might want to take a look at. In fact, that might be what those 3 dots are. And then if we move on up here, you'll notice there's a little flat that sticks out. We pointed this out on the Google Earth waypoints video as well. Some real good stick-ups in there and things like that to flip in. But if you look just off the side of it, you've got a really good break right here. So you've got a nice road bed with the break that basically goes from 13 to about 26 feet. So I would definitely look in this area right here to see if there's any chance of catching some good fish there. Moving on up, again, I've heard this lake is really good for pond dams in the summertime. So anytime you see pond on the navionics chart, I would stop and take a look at it. Just kind of scan around the edges of it, see if there's any activity in the pond. You've got one there. You've got one here as well that gives you a pretty good deep spot. Coming off a really, really huge flat here, you've got a road bed and then a really deep spot here, and then it kind of comes back up to being shallow again, and then it immediately drops back down into a creek channel right in here with a really sharp break right on the side of the concrete or the riprap that you would see there by the road line. So I would take a look at this area in here for sure. Also, depending on the time of year, if it's late summer, maybe look down in this deeper spot. And then also look and see if they're moving up here. Maybe they're hanging out down here, but they move up here to feed. So anywhere in this area could be good. Definitely worth scanning and taking a look at. And then as we move over here, you've got some really good contour lines going on all around in here. This might be worth scanning. Maybe at least hit the pond dams, see if there's anything around the pond dams. Anywhere you see these road beds, you have breaks by the road beds. Those are always good areas too. So maybe take a look at where these 3 little red squares are. And then moving down here, this is a really deep spot. It's 50 feet deep, but there is a submerged bridge over here as well with some really good creek channels coming into it. So, as I mentioned, I don't usually like fishing, more than 30, 35 feet deep. But if this is submerged bridge and maybe they were suspended off the top of it or something like that, it might be worth going out and checking out. And then moving over here, this looks like probably a hybrid or a white bass area. You've got a pretty deep hump here, but the top of the hump's at 26 feet. Then has pretty good sharp drop-offs on both sides. So this is probably a pretty good area to catch the white bass, sand bass, or hybrids, things like that. There could be largemouth bass out there as well, just not an area that I would typically target. So then moving on here, you've got some really good, nice points that come off of this flat that you could definitely scan around. If you are going to scan around that, again, look for those areas where the ponds are, or look where there's creek beds or creek channels coming through there. So here you've got a good creek bed. You've got a nice break here with a submerged culvert and a nice drop, so that can be a good area too. And then here as well, you got a nice point that kind of comes off here. It's about 12 feet, drops to about 26 feet. So you've got a really good setup right there with the road bed as well. Got another pond that's back in here. So a lot of good stuff that's just right around this area coming off this huge flat. And then if we move back in here, there was a really good spot that was really defined right in here, right in this area right in here on Google Earth. So I would definitely take a look at that now that the water's back up. See if if there's any fish collecting there, if there's any bait fish collecting there. Also, anywhere along this ridge line right here, there could be underwater timber, brush piles, things like that. So I would definitely scan around this area right in here and just follow that creek bed along that edge and see what you can find. And then moving on back here, not a lot going on from a contour perspective back in here, but again, a nice flat that comes out pretty far. And then it really has a high spot right on the end of it, 5 feet, probably even gets less than that. It shows that there's a pond there. So you may want to check out the sides of this. So they could come up here and feed on this shallow flat, but then drop off to the sides to kind of hang out. And so what I would do from a scanning standpoint is, kind of figure out your wind direction. That's going to tell you where the fish should be setting up, and then scan that area of the hump based on the way that the wind's blowing. So just some ideas there. Some more road beds coming up here. You've got a good creek channel coming through here. A nice road bed that kind of comes to a point here. So I would take a look at this. It's also got a creek channel that's out here. Not a real deep spot, and you're probably only talking 7 to 8 feet, somewhere in there. But a real good setup right there as far as the combination. And then you've also got a submerged bridge that's right here that you don't want to overlook. And then we talked about this before on some of the other videos like Levon and Hubbard and pre-spawn and post-spawn. But you're always looking for those stopping spots where those fish are going to go, where they're going to stop and then move to the next spot and then stop and so forth. And so if we look here, this is a pretty good stopping spot. If this roadbed really does exist and it's still there, it really sets up good. Let's say that you're a fish, you're going to come in here, you're going to stop on this roadbed, and then you're going to come here to the cove. You can stop here at this roadbed, feed up a little bit deep water. You're in 10 to 15 foot of water, and then maybe move up here to the shallows to spawn, and then back the same path. So take a look at these when they set up like this, because this is a pretty good setup moving into a pretty shallow pocket. So check a look at the roadbed, see if anything's relating to the roadbed. There could be cover down there. There's no telling what you might find in there. Same thing over here, you've got a roadbed. So definitely scan around the roadbed, scan around the submerged bridge that's out here in pretty deep water. And most particularly on this spot, if you notice, there's a nice point that comes off here and it sets in about 11 foot of water, and then it has some pretty good drop offs. And it looks like you've got some flooded timber right around there as well. So this area right here would be a prime spot to take a look at as far as offshore. You got some more ponds going on in here. This looks somewhat interesting right in here. And then if we zoom back out, I don't believe that I saw too much going on in here. Now I will say that the times that we have fished Richland Chambers, we have fished it 5 or 6 times. It's always been in the fall. So we've never actually had to go out and get too far offshore per se in Chambers. So curious to find out from the locals, is there a good offshore bite on this lake, or are you better off just staying closer to the bank and doing the flipping and pitching and all that good stuff, and then as well as fishing the docks? So curious to see what you guys come back with. So some other things going on here. You got a roadbed kind of sticks out here. This could be interesting coming off of the shallow point. So maybe take a look at that. You've got another pond dam here. And then when we move up, you'll see some pretty good contours and things going on here, but you've got a submerged bridge in this area. So take a look here and then follow that roadbed and take a look there as well. And if you notice right here, just leaving the contours out, there's a really good pond, a defined pond right here. And you've got some really good breaks around that pond. And then right on the back side of that pond right here, you'll see where the opening to the dam is. So you can actually get some pretty good breaks and some pretty good setups there. There's also times you'll find a lot of good cover in that area too. So focus on this area right in here, but mainly scan right here to start with. And that's probably where you're going to find your best bet for finding fish. All right, so moving on out here, that point does come out pretty far, but it is pretty deep out here, 25, 30 foot of water. It looks like there's some underwater structure and things like that you could fish around. Again, probably more hybrid and white bass, but definitely worth taking a look at. But if you scoot on up a little bit, it does get a little bit shallower, so it might be worth taking a look at all these road beds and just seeing if there's anything out there. Then I'm going to move on up here. You got some pretty decent points here with some road beds, nothing too crazy. Again, you kind of have the same thing going on right in here, but you do have a submerged roadbed again, moving back to that shallow pocket. So this could be a really good setup place or staging area before they move into the spawning pocket, or after they spawn and they're actually into a post-spawn getting ready to move back out. So again, looking in here, this is this is really weird how navionics shows this because it doesn't show the point very well. But it looks like you've got a pretty good shallow point that comes out here, about 10 foot of water, and then it breaks off into say 18 foot. But it's got a nice roadbed here as well. And then if you look further out, you've got a really good hump that's out here in 10 foot of water with break-offs all the way down to, oh man, looks like it goes down to like 30, 40 foot of water. So pretty deep out here off the brick of this hump, but a nice hump at about 10 foot. This would be a golden area to look at come summertime, right in here. There's an even deeper hump out here in 32 foot of water, but I would spend most of my time up here taking a look, trying to find that bait fish, trying to see where the fish are setting up at, and then fish accordingly based on the weight and things like that. All right, and then moving on up here, we do have some other areas up in here. Mainly it's just some shallow stuff, not much going on here. And then I'm going to turn around and probably take us back down. Or no, not yet. We'll take us up a little bit further, and then I'll take us down. I didn't want to get us too far north on this bridge because it gets pretty hairy for trees and things like that. But as we move past this bridge, one thing I wanted to point out right here is this roadbed that comes through here. And this nice break that you see right here in this area. So again, if you're fishing offshore, this could be a good area to take a look at right there. These coves all kind of look the same, just some kind of weak points and things like that. There are some stick-ups in this area that you can fish. And it looks like you got some pretty good drop-offs that come off here. But again, if you're looking at that Google Waypoints video, you'll see those. We've already marked those and said to fish those. So definitely, anytime you have a point that comes out like that that's really shallow, you definitely want to be fishing either on top of it, around it, beside it, all that good stuff. And you've got these creek beds too, so all kinds of good stuff going on there. Moving on up here, just a creek channel, some other stuff. Nothing too much going on here. If I remember right, we're going to get pretty far up here, and then I got to turn around. Because once we get to this island, it just gets flat out nasty from a tree standpoint. So we'll turn around there and we'll go back. So moving on up here, there was a nice point right here that I noticed. It's a really nice shallow area, and it's a pretty good drop off that point. So this could be a good little section to take a look at in the lake. You've also got another roadbed in here. It does say a hazard area, so be careful, but this could be good. This dock has a nice roadbed coming underneath it. And the dock has some pretty good depth, about 16 feet, so you can't count that one out. You've also got a nice creek bed that comes back in here. Now, if I was looking in this cove and decided to fish it, there's a couple of things that I would point out here. One would be these ponds. So you're looking at the old ponds, looking for old pond dams. And then notice the contour lines right here on the edge, how tight they are. That means you've got a pretty significant break that's coming right in here. My guess would be that that creek channel flows down, comes and hits this bank line, and then bounces back out. So right in this area could be a really good area to take a look at depending on the time of season that you're fishing. We've also got some other stuff here, a nice little shallow flat point that comes out underwater before it has to drop off. It has a roadbed on it, so take a look at that. And then come up here and just kind of follow these roadbeds and see if there's anything around these roadbeds, especially these shallow ones, and see what you can find. So I'm going to turn us back around because I don't want to get us too much further than that island, because again, there are just so many trees up here, it gets pretty dangerous. And we talked about it on Google Earth. If you want to go up there, you can. But again, you got to be pretty careful when you get up there because it gets pretty bad pretty quickly. So, all right, so I'm going to move on back down. We're going to get down below this island. We're going to come back over here. One thing I did notice about the island, and again, there's trees all in here, so be super, super careful. But a lot of these red dots, so I don't know if these are old homes or old buildings, things like that, but all those would be good places to scan and find out if there's actually anything in the area. The problem is you're going to be having to drive through the stumps to do it, but it might be worth taking a look at. I do like this side of the island right here. We have some really sharp breaks. You've got a creek bed that's nearby. You've got some ponds nearby. Just some good stuff setting up here. I really like how that sets up, and it looks like you can kind of get close to it before you get to the trees and get in there back there and fish it. So if I were up there fishing around that island, this would definitely be an area that I would take a look at. And then moving on here, if we just ignored the trees, a good flat that comes out with some nice breaks on the end of it, got some cover with the trees and things like that. So these could all be good areas to fish. You just got to be careful when you go up in there. And then we're going to keep on moving down. I don't want to spend too much time up there because, again, probably wouldn't fish up there too much just because how dangerous it is. But that might be the best place to fish. So sometimes the hardest places to get to are the best places to fish. So don't ignore it if you're in that area. Maybe just go up there and fish around and see what you can find. So if we move on down here, again, always take a look at the road beds and things like that. But I do like this point because it has a road bed off of it, a couple different structures or something, structure or cover or something like that that's under here. So take a look at these areas. Anytime you see these red dots, take a look at them. They could be brush piles, it could be rocks. There's no telling what they are. Could be stumps too, so always be careful when you go around them. Some additional creek beds and things like that coming through here, and then you just kind of follow the bridge back. And we talked about the riprap that's right here by this marina, so that's always a good area too to fish, kind of a local honey hole. Everybody always stops there and fishes, and almost every time I saw somebody stop there, they caught them. We even caught several just walking off of this bank line and catching fish, just casting out. So always a good area to take a look at there. Moving on in here, as far as offshore spots, you got some interesting things going on, like a deep pocket in here. Maybe look at it. I wouldn't spend too much time there. And then moving on down here, you got a couple more pond dams and a really good point that comes off right here. So you got a nice shallow area in here. You got some road beds going on here, and then you got a fairly I guess not shallow, deep flat, really from like 20 to 30 feet that kind of sticks out here and that has major drop offs. So I'm not sure if too much would be in there, but definitely up in here. I would take a look at all of this area in here, scan around the flooded timber, see if anything's collecting in there. And if not there, then maybe go to the backside and see if you can find anything hanging out off the backside of it or off the side of it. And then as we move in here, we do have a road bed and a submerged bridge in here. So always take a look at that. It's pretty deep, 35 feet, but worth taking a look at. And then as we move back in here, one thing I wanted to point out was right here, right in front of these two docks, there's something going on here. Can't tell what it is, like a 4-foot drop or so, but that could be an area to take a look at because something is going on right in that general area. We've also got some riprap and stuff that you could fish around here. Another point that kind of comes out here really, really shallow and then drops off. So take a look at the sides of these. I believe there's some trees and stick-ups and stuff that you could flip around in there. And then going back into this cove is just kind of a simple cove, but I don't want to spend too much time on that because I know this video is going to be super, super long. And again, I'm not sure if Chambers is really a place that you go out and fish deep. I mean, maybe it is. I'm just totally off. But for the most part, we were able to fish pretty shallow in this lake and have a lot of success. But again, it could have been the time of year as well. So when we go back in here, definitely go back and take a look at the Google Waypoints video. We talked about a path to get you through all these trees and how to be really careful and things like that. But there is a general path that I made for you to kind of follow as you work your way through these trees. But I wouldn't spend too much time on this side of the lake, especially down in here, because there is so much timber that you could definitely get yourself in trouble. So let's go ahead and just move on over. We'll probably start, let's say, back in. I wanted to start right back in here, and then we'll work our way back to the dam and go ahead and finish up this video. But this area looks so good that I think I would take the time to take the boat back here. 20, 30-minute boat ride, probably really slow to get back here. But once you get back here, this could be the crown jewel. And I just like the way that it sets up. And if you look at it on the map, it sets up really, really nice. You've got a big flat here. It comes out, it's 7 feet at the top of it, or 10 feet at the top here. You've got all kinds of timber going on. You've got a creek bed that swings around it. You got another one that swings into it. You've got a little fish icon here. There's just a lot of good stuff going on right here that I would definitely come down. I would take a look at this. I would take a look at the top of this flat. I would take a look at all of these breaks that are around here. And I would probably also even come down here and scan around this. So then after that, there's not too much as far as other than just fishing around each one of these points that I would take a look at from an offshore standpoint coming down through here. Now, if we get back up into this area, which I think we're getting back a little bit closer back into safe zone once we get right around here. Again, I talked about those points. Just fish around those points, especially if you see the ones with the sharp breaks. Come summertime and come later in the year, these are all going to be good ones. So you got a good one here with the creek channel. Good one here with the creek channel beside it. Another good area right in here if we take a look at this. Got a creek channel coming through here. I know this is rock, and I know we've caught fish right in here, so they collect right in here. So this is a good area to take a look at. Then as we move on, we got some pond dams. Again, some good points. Always take a look at these little fish icons because this is coming down a creek channel. And it's sliding pretty close to the bank line, so that could be a brush pile, or you never know what that is. Take a look at that, and then kind of follow those creek beds back, see if you can find other brush piles and things like that if you're just working those certain areas. Here you've got a really good point with some good drop-offs and a road bed on the edge of it. And then as we move over, just some additional road beds and things like that, but nothing really too crazy. And again, you got to be really careful because there's a lot of flooded timber right in here. You can really do some damage there. So moving on down, let's go ahead and wrap this thing up. We're going to move down. Not too much going on from an offshore standpoint down here. Got a couple points you might want to take a look at. One is right here. You've got a really good point that comes off here with a shallow area, and then really good drops coming here with a creek bed off the edge of it. So this would be a really good spot to take a look at and spend some time scanning around and seeing if you can locate some fish. Same thing off this point. Sets up really well. Road bed out the side, creek bed, lots of good things going on with that. Then we're going to scoot on down. Just some good points to fish, flooded timber, things like that. Look for those pond dams as well. If you see anything in there, definitely fish them. I like this right here. See how this comes off? It's flat. It's about 9 feet. And then it drops pretty significantly. It also has a creek bed that's coming very close to it. But definitely take a look and start scanning in this area, right around this hump. All sides of it, and again, depending on the wind direction, should depend on how those fish set up on there. And then as we move on down here, a lot of stuff going on by the dam, very, very deep water. So go down there and scan around, see what you can find. Look in these areas that come up pretty high. So if you notice here, you've got 11 feet. So you've got a nice little hump out here by this road bed, and then some really deep water right beside it, which this looks very interesting. So, take a look at all those places that look like that on the map. Those can be really good areas that are offshore that look like they're in really deep water because they're surrounded by 50 foot of water. But in reality, you're only fishing 11 foot of water. So look at those areas, look at these areas where the junctures meet with the road beds, look for these little flat tops, 12 foot on the top and breaks off all the sides. Those are all good areas to take a look at. And then again, this just takes us right back to the dam where we started. So that really concludes the video for Richland Chambers navionics. That was part 3. If you missed part 1 and part 2, just make sure to go out to the channel, and we've got a playlist that has lake breakdowns for you, and we'll have both of those in there, as well as several other lakes that you can check out. We'll continue to add more as we progress. So if you have a lake that you'd like for us to break down, just put it in the comments, and we'll make sure to get it added to the list. And until next time, tight lines.